Stand please for the pledge. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All set with everybody? Audience.
Oh,
Who do we have?
Essential stuff.
Oh, yeah. Who would know?
Who would know if we all work?
Right? Stone.
Unless you wish to remain anonymous. There you go.
is everybody else, I think I know everybody, is everybody, there's a sign in there, so. This is the select board. Is anybody unsure of who anybody is? Just friendly reminder, always address questions, comments, concerns to our chairman, Mike Beecher, and please make sure to introduce who you are before you speak, if you speak, so that we can get you down in the minutes. Thank you.
Any addition or deletion?
Yes,
Is that Hillary?
so yeah, Hillary is our main addition, and so I wasn't sure where you wanted that to fall on the agenda. Part of what she's here to speak of is about the ARPA funds and potentially using those for stormwater projects, but also she has a couple other things, so.
Let's put her right up at pre-requested down there.
Okay. And I don't think there's nothing else out of the ordinary on the agenda except for the monument discussion, which continues to be on the agenda, so I don't think
Okay.
there's anything to delete, and I don't think there's anything else to add. I sort of felt like there was, but nothing.
Okay.
That's coming to the top of my brain.
Now we're on to previous minutes. Anybody see anything in there that needed to get corrected or not?
Well, I'll move that we accept the minutes of the last meeting.
Okay. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Pre-requested. Hillary?
Yeah, so I just want to make sure, cut me off if I get too long, and can you hear me? Because I'm kind of hard to hear.
I can hear you.
I
Yeah.
think you all right. And I think it's about 10 minutes for pre-requested, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll keep an eye on it. I'll
Okay, maybe
give you I'll give you a couple.
If I see people nodding off, I'll know. So I'm with the Poultney Meadowy Natural Resources Conservation District. So I have three things to talk to you guys about. One's the Clean Water Service Provider funding that's going to be coming through. So in addition to ARPA, you're going to have a whole nother source of funds that are going to be coming through every year for the foreseeable future to do ag, forestry, stormwater, and those type of projects. Maybe some roads projects, we aren't quite sure. There's still a lot of guidance that we need to get on these funds. And then I brought from the Stormwater Master Plan, I brought the draft, all of the draft projects. So these are all the projects we found in town, and I emailed a copy to Mike and Jess, and have a copy here to show you guys. There was also a wetland study that was done by Arrowwood Consulting that looked at some of the wetlands up in the Beaverbrook watershed. It wasn't, when I looked at it, I didn't see anything that jumped off the page as like, oh, that would be a great project, and I bet that landowner would be really excited to restore a wetland on their property. But I can get that information to you guys, because one of the things Jess mentioned when she was talking about the ARPA funds was maybe some wetlands restorations or something like that. So maybe we can have a little bit of a discussion about what you guys are interested in, and I'll get you the information that I have access to, and we can sort of narrow down what you're looking at. And then the other is we've been working with the Planning Commission doing some climate adaptation work, and there were a series of public meetings, and I have the resulting workbook from all of that work. And the hope is that you know, whether it's the Planning Commission or the Select Board, probably it would be the Planning Commission who would go through that workbook and do, you know, list out some strategies and things that they wanted to maybe focus on for future iterations of town plan, hazard mitigation plan, or just work in town when we're doing the stormwater work. Some of these things will sort of crosswalk to each other. So I have a copy of the adaptation workbook here. We had, as a group, we came up with sort of project management goals, overall goals, that we were trying to work sort of under. These are ideas like sort of not making things worse or not affecting, not trying to help in one sector and then making things worse in a different sector. We picked areas that we thought were going to be the most affected by damage locally, and so you'll see a whole list of things that we thought were going to be important locally to consider, and then went through and picked the ones within those different areas that we thought were going to be the most important to Pawlet, or to Pawlet, Danby, and to the Flower Brook watershed. So it all boiled down, if you look through this whole packet, and we looked through all kinds of different suggestions under each one of these areas that we were considering. And the areas considered like vector-borne disease, the differences in stream flow that we're experiencing from no water during summer droughts to floods, and sort of how streams are adjusting and wildlife and fish are adjusting to that, how people, how infrastructure and roads, stream crossings and culverts are adjusting, how we're having to deal with this as a municipality and as landowners, to sort of more like watershed based, how do we look at the landscape and pick what we want to work on? Do we want to preserve healthy watersheds? Do we want to focus on watersheds and streams that are really degraded? And trying to do something in kind of a targeted, efficient way. So we boil it all down as this sort of public group that we met a couple times and went over all this information to a couple of things under each one of these areas that we picked. So we picked our top choices for sort of strategies and things we wanted to look at. And then the idea is that, the Planning Commission or Select Board might actually be able to either pick things that are already recommended in the town plans that address some of these that we can focus on. We can work together, look for funding, figure out how to move forward. Or maybe the next time the town plan is updated or hazard mitigation plan is updated, think about these things and try and get some of this into the plan so we can work together to sort of mitigate some of the factors that we're experiencing. Flooding, roads washing out, that type of thing.
I have a thought here, may I?
Yes.
So our hazard mitigation plan expires in 2023, and Bob Morlino is probably this next year going to be getting a grant to, we're going to pay Rutland Regional Planning Commission to help us upgrade that.
Okay.
So I'm just thinking we should probably get, since this document has to do with hazard mitigation, we should probably get a copy of it to Bob Morlino.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
That would be great. That's perfect. And then also, of course, at the Rutland Regional Planning Commission, so you have Stephanie who's working on hazard mitigation plans, but Barbara worked on the climate piece. So
Yeah, so she already knows a bit about that.
Too.
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh, I did that pretty fast. And then the next is the South Lake, the Clean Water Service Provider. So after the TMDL for Lake Champlain and the state of Vermont got in trouble with US EPA, and the state has made a lot of steps and set aside a lot of funding to do clean water projects. They decided to change the way that funds were distributed locally and to have a more local distribution method. And so they named the Rutland Regional Planning Commission in partnership with the Conservation District as the Clean Water Service Provider. We're going to build a Basin Water Quality Council. And on that council, there'll be 2 members from planning commissions, and that could be, we could be looking at the board members for the planning commission. So whoever from Pawlet serves that position right now, or town managers or town clerks or sort of whoever would be appropriate. Okay, so regional planning commissions could be staff or could be somebody from the board. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. 2 people from conservation districts, related in some way to conservation districts. 2 watershed groups, which we don't really have in our watershed. So we're going to try and figure that out. And then a land conservation group like Vermont Land Trust, and then 2 folks from municipalities. So the towns could participate either as the board member for the RPC or as a person just designated to represent the municipalities in the area. And here's the map of our watershed. It's the Poultney Meadowy, it's our district basically, the Poultney Meadowy South Lake watershed, plus this direct watershed that goes up through Addison County and drains, all these streams drain just directly into South Lake. So this is Rutland Regional Planning Commission, and this is Addison Regional Planning Commission. We're gonna try to work together on this little watershed. So we'll be trying to put that together, so if anybody has any interest in participating in this, the Basin Water Quality Council, there'll be quarterly meetings, we'll figure out what projects we're gonna fund, who's gonna do the implementation, who's gonna develop these projects. The projects will be agricultural, forestry, developed lands or stormwater projects. And the problem is, they're non-regulatory projects, so for ag, almost everything falls under the required ag practices. So we're having trouble figuring out what would be a project you could do on a farm. It's probably gonna be like a stream restoration project, not a barnyard project. That funding would also go to Agency of Agriculture or NRCS, so that's federal funding. And then similarly with forestry, almost everything falls under the AMPs. So while they're designating funding, quite a bit of funding in our watershed to the forestry sector, because we have one of the greatest reductions that we need to make from forested lands with any of the watersheds in Lake Champlain Basin. We don't really know what that means because the AMPs cover almost everything related to forestry. So all this guidance is being developed right now, and yet they're trying to get funding on the ground in July. So it's challenging. Then similarly, roads projects, everything falls under the general permit for the town. So again, we don't really know what they're going to allow to be funded. And then what they've said with the roads work is that if the Clean Water Service Provider, which is us and the RPC, is sort of on track with funding, then we might be able to use this funding for regulatory projects like roads projects or 3-acre permit projects, which you probably don't have in Pawlet. But there are quite a few around. Okay, let me see what else. I think I got through most of it. Oh yes, stream projects. We ended up with quite a bit of funding for stream projects, but that's not an area that we've really focused on, except in the Flower Brook watershed where there's a lot of gullies. We don't tend to see a ton of erosion on our streams. I don't know if anybody has any questions. And then for ARPA funds, these are all the projects from the Stormwater Master Plan. I sent that around electronically too.
Yeah.
Like I said, we can get the wetlands information if you're interested.
So I guess I have a quick question. I mean, I do know that for the ARPA funds, we're allowed to use the funds on anything that could be funded through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund or through the Drinking Water Revolving Fund. Do you know with these projects that have been identified in the past, if those are that kind of project?
Yes, they should be.
It should be?
Yeah.
Okay.
But they're allowing wastewater.
Yeah, and that's in addition.
Yeah, in the Pawlet, but I don't know that they've defined yet what they're calling wastewater, because they want to fund wastewater plants.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know about something that would, like, say, address dry wells in the village of.
Yeah, I mean, I have the list of expenditure categories here, and what it says in the category is clean water, stormwater. So, right, I mean, there's not a whole lot of guidance past that yet.
Right.
There is some,
Right.
but,
So,
yeah.
all these projects, and they're listed in the plan, so, these are the draft projects again, so some of them have project IDs, some of them don't. If you guys see something you like in there, just reach out to me, because it's been, like, the church project's done. Some of them have been partially done by the town years ago. So just let me know, and I usually sort of know if it ranked highly or didn't rank highly, if it has a number or didn't have a number, and I can help you guys get through that process.
Thank you.
Frank?
Hillary, you said there's a bunch of money that would be coming for this particular. So these types of projects should be funded by that money totally, right? So you wouldn't have to be looking at the ARPA, which is not clearly defined until later on, once they've come out with the landed rules on what you can do with it.
And you guys are working with the Rutland Regional Planning Commission, I'm guessing, on
Yes,
the
we are.
Okay, 'cause they're really the sort of the experts on that, but I could coordinate. Is it Devin?
Eric is the ARPA funds
So I can
coordinator.
reach out to him too, and we can figure out how to make it so these funds are not, if there are areas where they're not duplicative, I think that would be good to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, which is what you were saying, Frank, I think. Okay.
Any other questions?
I'll call them tomorrow and see, just ask them that questions and see if they have.
Thank you.
Does anybody in the audience have any questions for Hillary? Mike?
What are the parameters for determining clean versus dirty water, I guess? I don't know how else to put that.
So probably the different funding sources have slightly different definitions. The Clean Water Service Provider Funds is all related to phosphorus for Lake Champlain. It's in the Lake Champlain watershed or Lake Memphremagog watershed only right now. And so the measurement and the success of a project will be related to pounds of phosphorus reduced per year. And it's all modeled, so we may or may not actually get that reduction. And right now, there's not really water quality data to uphold whether or not those reductions are actual.
Yeah.
So
you're not actually doing testing streams?
I am doing testing. The problem is it's difficult, it's challenging when you have, say you have a project that treats the water that drains by the church here in Pawlet. And I take a sample behind the town office. Can I measure that?
Yeah.
It's so diluted at that point. And so there really isn't a good mechanism that's been identified about how to monitor these sites. We're working on it, and I do have some data from sites where I have water going in and water going out, and I can show that half the phosphorus is being taken out in that site. But I have to get those during thunderstorms. So I'm building that data slowly, and we're doing it. We've been monitoring for years, but a lot of places around the state aren't. So it's a little spotty, the data.
Thank you.
Well, that's a great question. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Well, thank you for coming down tonight, Hillary, and
Thank you.
giving us this information to work with. And
Yeah, sorry I presented like so many things at once.
you got us thinking about everything, that's for sure. So we know how to get a hold of you to get more clarification and stuff.
Yeah, I'd love to keep working with you guys too. If you have a piece that you're more interested in than another or something, I'm happy to do that.
Excellent. Thank you. Frank?
Planning Commission might interact with you and take more of the load off the select board, because some of it sounds like planning
Yeah,
stuff.
for that climate adaptation piece.
Yeah, I think that piece is a planning commission piece.
Well, great. Thank you. Have a good night.
Do you need these documents back?
No, you can do those.
Okay, thank you.
Any announcements?
I can.
I want to give you guys this one too that has the map on the back of it.
Thank you.
I think my only announcement is just a friendly reminder to everybody that the virtual component, if and when anybody needs or feels more comfortable to utilize it, is smooth and up and running. So, I'm sure we've all seen the news lately. So, always just so everybody knows, the link is always available if anybody chooses to want to use it. And if you need a refresher on it, I always have it. So you're welcome to contact me for it.
Who do we have on the audience tonight?
Electronically signing in, we have Keith, Jennifer, Rhonda, and Bob Schoeneman.
Nice. Do we have anything from the zoning administrator?
Yes, so Jonas left a copy of permits. This looks like this is from all of 2021. He's just left the updated permit log for the board. And then he did send an email. So he said he's prepared his zoning report for the board meeting and it's on the table, and that was what was left on the table. He will not be attending the meeting this evening as he has an obligation for Castleton. He has drafted a response to Mr. Wesco regarding the zoning permit 2008-01 and has sent the response to Merrill for her review, and at that time he has not received a reply, but that was sent on Sunday, and I don't have anything updated from him, but that was all that he had.
Thank you. Jessica?
All right, Planning Commission's report. We are happy to report that Pawlet is now officially a 10-acre town for purposes of Act 250. So that's done. At our meeting last week, the Planning Commission discussed the Enhanced Energy Plan, and we decided on our next steps. We're going to take Annette Smith advice and create some maps of where solar energy must and must not be sited in our town. So next meeting, which is going to be January 24, because we're canceling the December meeting because it's like 2 days after Christmas. So none of us really felt like we could make it. In January, we're going to use some large printed maps, and we're going to go over them together and look at the solar siting. The other thing we discussed, John Weiss, who is on the Development Review Board, was there and discussed this with us. We talked about the conditions for conditional uses, both broadly and more specifically. In general, the Planning Commission wants to give the DRB both better and clearer guidance on what they should take into consideration when making decisions. And we also want them to give them somewhat broader authority to make those decisions, especially in cases where the bylaws are silent on a particular use. And John updated us on some of the decisions they've had to make lately that are a little in this sort of gray area, right, where the bylaws don't really speak to a particular condition. Jonas, our ZA, suggested some language which we are planning to add to the bylaws that gives a little wiggle room for uses that are very similar to another use but aren't quite exactly the same. So that gives a little more leeway for the DRB. And I think that's our report.
Great. Anybody have any questions for the Planning Commission?
Oh, and this is Jonas's. There's one for everybody.
Oh, there is?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Okay,
I thought it was just a robust list of permits.
Oh, and non-planning commission necessarily related, but as of yesterday at 5 p.m., we got in our Vermont Outdoor Recreation Communities grant, the one for the Pawlet Welcome Center. So that is fully the West Pawlet Rail Trail Welcome Center. So that's fully submitted. Good job, Kristen and Bruce and Eleanor Hayes, who were all on the committee and worked hard. So we did it. Now we'll find out in January.
Yes. How what happens? Now we wait.
Everybody's building shit, huh? Road
I
foreman.
think Frank has a
Frank?
question.
We also got everybody signed on people's houses who weren't at the planning commission meeting for appreciation card for Tom Collar.
Yes,
And did you guys send a letter?
yes.
Okay, if you guys want to sign a card, you could. I can bring it in, but it should be mailed. I don't have his address.
Yeah, the select board and myself, we've reached out to him as well.
Okay.
To write him a
Then
note.
can we leave the card with you or?
Well, I don't work out of this office. I'm not here other than at the meetings. But perhaps one of the other office
Deb or somebody?
dwellers might be able to, yeah.
Because I don't have his mailing address.
Okay.
Here.
Yeah, unfortunately don't either, but
Okay,
perhaps if you call ahead, maybe someone in the clerk's office might be able to help.
okay, thank you.
Road foreman, Keith didn't send anything in as a report, did he?
No, I've got nothing that came to my email.
So, let's see, what have we got done? It seemed to make it through the plow season, the first storm of the year, all right, huh?
I think they've been cutting branches the last few days.
Right?
Cleaning up branches. We had that sewer pipe repair last week in West Pawlet. That's thankfully finished up. Today they were supposed to work on the ditch project on the Spruce Gum property that the town owns, that Josh did the design for. I believe, I don't know if they finished that today or not. I didn't check it out, but so that'll be good. Once they get that finished, we can put that piece of property up for sale. So,
We'll have to look into that.
yeah. Yeah, we'll have to decide whether we want to auction it like we did the truck or what the
Well, and I
best.
think, we'll have to work with Julie and whoever else to determine what's gone into it, because the town can't sell it for any more.
We can
can't
sell
keep-
it for more.
they can't
You
keep
can't
anymore.
keep a profit,
Right.
so,
We need to find out how much we have tied up in it.
yeah. So what at least the town needs to
Right.
get for
And we
it.
won't know that for another week or so.
Right, till we get the bill from Markowski for this, just a little bit more. Okay, perfect. And they're gonna move down to the center of town and put that drain in,
That's right. Yeah, they're gonna do those two projects,
so.
weather permitting,
Right.
so,
It's
yeah,
in,
that's the
it's in
plan.
basically snow, they're not really worried about frost yet, or?
No, they're not worried about, I think we'll be fine for another
Yeah.
couple weeks. They shouldn't have any trouble getting those two projects completed,
Yeah.
so.
I don't know, it looks like Thursday, there's some poor weather, and then says next week it's supposed to cool off some, so, but I don't think it's any zero temperature, so it shouldn't give them any problem.
Yeah, they should be all right, unless it gets down in, below 10, they
Yeah.
should be able to do those projects without any trouble.
All the equipment seems to be in order, no problems that you're aware of.
No, I talked with Keith, what was it? I don't know if it was Monday or Saturday, one of those days, and everything was in good working order. Other than possibly some tires for the backhoe. I was gonna wait to hear back from him on that, so.
Wonder if we should go with some of those road type tires more so, some of those machines that run the road a lot, like Hosley has on the front of his tractor, they have more of a highway tire for a backhoe. That might make more sense. They're a little bit pricier, but
Yeah, as long as they're gonna get the traction with them, without chains, I don't know
yeah.
how they do in the winter.
But I don't think we use it a lot to push snow in the winter, do we? Just for digging the bank, loading the truck.
Yeah, unless we get a 4-foot storm.
Right. But I know that they have a tire that's more designed for a lot of highway running like we do with that.
Yeah, I think it's well worth
Yes.
looking into.
Keith, just messaged me and said that the ditch line was completed today and it's ready for mulch.
Okay, great.
Nice.
So the next project is the DIs in West Pawlet.
He's not even here today. Bruce. Okay. Is there anything from the assessors?
Yes. Did you see those emails that came through? So, exciting news from the assessor's office was that there are full PDF files available of the PRCs, which we all refer to as the lister cards. They are now available for viewing and are linked to the GIS website. And additional information on this and accessing them may be found on the assessor's page of the town website. So that's very exciting because they haven't been, so it's been a bit more cumbersome. And then also Karen said that I could share that the office is now 100% certified with current use parcels as well. So,
Good.
seems like all is going well there and they've had some good successes in their world, which is nice.
Town clerk's memo?
Yes, I got, an email from Deb. So, let's see. She would like the board to address the governor's delegating select boards to require masks in all businesses, public buildings, etc. in their municipality. I am fairly certain that the board will not require a whole community mask mandate, but would like for them to reaffirm that masks will continue to be required in all municipal buildings. We have continued this requirement, but would like the board to confirm their support of this requirement. She would also like for you all to start thinking of town meeting, as she is pretty certain there will have to be a remote availability in addition to the in-person unless legislation changes with any change in the COVID situation. At this point, Deb would prefer to attend the meeting remotely, so just we need to start thinking about that and setting up the Zoom because so on and so forth. So She will be reserving the gym at the school for the informational meeting as per usual, as long as the school will allow that, and unfortunately, so much can change between now and then, so it's hard to make any plans, but to start thinking about it. Deb had also reached out to VLCT with regard to the monument and under whose authority changes can be made. Sue had sent out an email to the board members from the VLCT with their response, which does basically state that the boards have authority over what does or does not go on the town-owned property. So that's pretty much all from Deb. So I think that the only action item, which I know Frank had brought this up, which I had sent to you all too, which this might be another bigger discussion, but about the recent legislature changes about giving municipalities the authority to determine what mask mandates are within the towns. So I think at this point in time, Deb is just requesting that you continue to support the town office staff in requiring masks upon entry to the building. So.
That's something that we probably want in the form of a motion.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think that there's a bigger conversation that might need to be had about what else the town would like to do, keeping in mind that none of us are health experts, which is the tricky thing about giving the power to the municipalities, but I think continuing to support this mandate that's already been going. I know, for what it's worth, I think it would be nice in these settings to continue to have it be something that we all abide by. So.
Frank?
Yeah, Rutland, as you probably may have read, is an ordinance with fines and the whole 9 yards. That's way beyond us. Who's going to go around, write tickets and charge people in court and collect money? And, you know, we don't have that whole system in place. I think that the status quo has been going on already. Is anybody in disagreement with the status quo? I don't hear peeking.
Somebody want to make a motion to support Deb's request to continue that we require mask worn in the town office?
And she requested in municipal buildings, which I think is currently what it is, but is that, I don't know if, does that just...
Is the library also municipal building? Because they also have a requirement, I think,
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah, I know that the previous motion was for municipal buildings. I don't know necessarily what that entails. I just know that's
Is
what it
there a
was.
timetable? Some parts of that, I think, has to be monthly renewed or something.
I don't know that there is a timetable.
Okay.
Originally, once upon a time, the timetable was until the end of the
It was
COVID-19
lifted, right?
pandemic or state of emergency, which was lifted, and then at the end of the state of emergency, the board continued to support the mandate in the municipal buildings. And I think now that there's just been this other kind of, you know, stop along the journey, and the legislature is putting more power in the hands of the municipal boards, I think that Deb is just seeking another kind of reiteration of that. So I don't know. I'm sure you could put a time stamp on it if you wanted.
I read in an article something about them you having to renew it every month or something like that.
Oh, okay.
But we can find out before next month.
Yeah, right.
We could, want to set a 1 month time limit on this, and then that would get it going, and then in a month's time we'll determine if we can do it for longer or how the...
It could also be as simple as continuing to support the
Right.
municipal mask mandate or the mask mandate in municipal buildings.
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Town garage, all kinds of places, so I think the town hall would be just the limitation, but the library would do what they want.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Right. So Julie's memo. So there are 2 warrants this week. The payroll for this period was $11,130.01. Accounts payable was $42,809.59. General fund monies, $16,155.50. Highway, $21,475.68. Wastewater, $16,308.42. Please review the Ferguson invoice. Is this all West Pawlet stormwater? Is that an ARPA project, or is that budgeted in highway, or is it to be determined? I can always make adjustments to account for it, if it's for it as ARPA, if we decide to put it there. Do we have to submit our ARPA project proposals to the state prior to using them? And then at the end of her memo, it looks like she's looking for a motion for the payroll warrant 22031, a motion for accounts payable warrant 22032, a motion for the approval of the general fund for fiscal year 22-23 budget, as well as for the highway budget for fiscal year 22-23. So she is not here this evening, but I get the idea that she's
So four motions, because usually the payroll and the accounts payable,
our one.
we kind of combine them together under the same warrant.
Yeah, so,
the
I
same
mean,
vote.
I've got it all typed out if you wanted to do four separate motions, but I don't
Do we not
know.
need to do a motion for the wastewater budget? Is that,
Right,
I don't see that
because
on
that's a
here.
user's fee
Okay,
to be determined, you know.
Right.
But that's why we don't have to approve it.
I think to make sure that the i's are dotted and the t's are crossed, you could make your usual motion to approve the warrants and then make motions for these additional ones.
So I've got a question about the Ferguson invoice.
It's supposed to be here somewhere. Did you see it? She said she was gonna leave it out. Here you can dig. Last time.
So that, all of that is supposed to be for the stormwater project in West Pawlet. But it'd be nice to look it over and make sure they did deliver everything that's on their invoice.
and as far as whether it's ARPA, I think it should be, but I'd like to run that by Eric Hall to just double check. Like she said, she can always make adjustments. To answer that, I can answer that final question, though. We do not have to submit our ARPA project proposals to the state. The state has nothing to do with it. This is federal money. So we do the projects, and then we will need in the spring to make a report saying all the projects we did, and they will be kind of checking up on us to make sure they were correct projects. So that's the situation with that.
I just messaged her to see if the Ferguson invoice was somewhere, but
Is that related at all to the grant that we wrote for West Pawlet, or?
No, that would be for future ideas for projects.
Perfect, great.
Foley, right after Foley services, it should be 7.
So do we not have the Ferguson invoice here to look at? Is
That's
that-
what they're
I'm trying to
looking
find
for
it
right now.
It's $12,000 for probably.
There it is. Two drop inlets.
These for those plastic drop inlets?
Yeah, we'll never get those again. Yeah, things are ridiculous. We're lucky we could even get the pipe now.
$22 a foot for 20 inch.
Yeah, everything on this invoice is over there at the West Pawlet Town Barn, and it's all for a stormwater project.
okay.
It is for stormwater, but we're gonna use ARPA funding to pay for it, correct?
We'd like to. I want to double check with Eric Hall
Okay.
and just make sure that this kind of project, I mean, I'm pretty certain it is, but I want to get a little confirmation. So this was just, was this installing the DIs?
Yeah, the one
Okay.
right by Bruce Surjanes.
Yep.
This is just the first phase of the projects.
Right. And so this is putting in stormwater drainage that we've never had before, right? This is new stormwater drainage.
Yes, yeah.
It should qualify, but I want to, just double check. Yeah.
So one is down by Bruce's and then one is just above Rhonda's house right there on, I
Right.
think that's New Street.
Yep.
Frank has a question.
Frank?
Yeah, and Eric, when he talked about this, said the feds hadn't finalized that list of approvals. And you're saying kind of let it roll along until it gets finalized in December or January, whenever that's gonna be. So that may be something that Eric's not gonna be able to say yay or nay on right now because of the lack of that finalization if it hasn't occurred yet.
Right. My understanding, though, is there are some things they're pretty clear on, and they're not gonna take those away, but they might add new things.
Okay.
So if this is one they're already allowing, I think we can pretty much say yes.
Yeah.
But I'll double check with them.
Okay. Any more questions about anything?
Time to make motions?
I believe so, yes.
All right, I'll make the first motion for payroll warrant 22031.
So are you just gonna do these and no blanket motion for warrants? Will all the warrants be covered under these 4 motions?
Yes.
Just making sure.
We'll do it in 2 and then we'll see if, we'll do it exactly the way she has it laid out then.
Okay.
And then maybe you can ask her if there's a reason that we can't lump the payroll in the accounts payable together, like we always used to.
Okay,
I'll second Jessica's motion.
thank you. I got it.
How come, what did you do, kick back a whole bunch of money just? Your stipend, what'd you do, kick back a whole bunch or what?
Oh, yeah, just for tax. Why, did it screw something up?
No, I just understand. $216.
Yeah, that's what my accountant told me to do. So I listened.
Okay, she just said she's trying a new way of writing the memo,
Okay.
so,
Actually, it did occur to me that
alright. So there's been a motion and a second
it looked weird at first.
for 22031. Jessica and Rich moved.
Any more discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. So I didn't mean to pry, but I just
Yeah,
wondered.
that's all that was.
It was on you, your decision, okay. Second motion for accounts payable.
I'll move that. Why does no one ever want to make motions? I make a motion that we do the accounts payable warrant 22032.
And I have a second.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
You might as well go again.
Yeah, exactly.
Approve
I'll
the general
move-
fund?
Yep, I move that we approve the general fund fiscal year 2022-2023 budget.
And I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Approve, highway budget of 615,122.
Yeah, I'll move that.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
We got it done.
You're just so good at it. That's why.
The cool thing about it is you're spending all that money, but you don't gotta put the money up.
Start the
Oh, we're all
family
spending
band.
it.
All right. So,
Just approved $100 million worth of
Yeah. I mean, I put up my couple $1,000s of it, you know. Yeah.
there you go. Nice work. All right.
So, town treasurer is all done.
Yes.
Emergency management,
Nothing from,
nothing from him.
nothing from Bob.
Anything from
Think-
Jennifer?
Jennifer, are you, I know there's been some technical difficulties, but are you able to chime in?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
You guys hear me this time?
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay, so, there was a call to the town about the possibility of a family living in a pop-up camper, with children. I investigated that and found that not to be the case. There's an adult, who sleeps there, but no children, and I didn't find any other issues. I discussed it with Mike and Bob Morlino, and no further action. I also got a call about some drainage bubbling up from a manhole. Turned out it was a known problem. And I talked with Mike and he followed up with the original caller. So no further action. That's been it.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Jennifer? Okay. Thank you, Jennifer.
You're welcome.
Wastewater treatment facility. The big deal about the wastewater treatment facility, we've been showing over the last couple, well, prior to last week, 2 weeks ago, we've been seeing a lot of extra flow in the spruce gum pipeline. And we were concerned that maybe people were pumping their basement water, sump pumps into the sewage, which is against our code. And so they were in the process of doing the jetting, and they found an incredible amount of water coming in, so they couldn't even jet it. So we did some excursions, and she brought down her camera, but then that failed, and I was able to get Granville to come over with their camera, and we determined that right in where that culvert goes across the road by the town-owned property, that's where the water was coming from. And in order to deal with that issue, we had to take the end of the culvert apart. So we had to hire somebody that had experience and had machines big enough to do this. So Richie and I talked, and we chose Markowski, and they were able to move a machine right in, a large machine. They had a great deal of experience with this type of work. So they dug it out, and they found that there was a breach where the pipe came from the little gray house across the road. There was a pipe broke, and they don't know if time, the culvert, just whatever. Well, when that cracked open, it let all the surface water out of that ditch go directly. It was all buried, but all the groundwater trapped in there was going directly into the sewer pipes. And without pushing all that groundwater down to the village, that check valve that leaks was bleeding off, and that's what the water was that Jennifer was talking about in the road. It was all the water getting pumped that was leaking in from the groundwater. So they were able to come in, they found the issue, and they came back by the end of the day. They had found the issue, and they went and got all the parts that they needed, and they came in and fixed it the next day and put it all back together, and I believe it was all set. I think I know he was gonna move a smaller machine in to clean up and stuff.
Yeah, they did that, and they mulched it, and they just went across the road and finished that other project today, so.
So they did the, what the hell do you call it, a relief for a floodplain relief on that little stream. So that should help alleviate some of the water from going over the bank and in through everybody's basement, all the way down through that side of the road on Spruce Gum, so.
Hillary's next up for that project.
You were, Josh talked to you a little bit about that anyways, about maybe in the spring we can find some, plants to plant in there, but for this, right now, we'll just mulch it in but they were able, since they were there with the excavator, they went across the road and just put that relief in the bank so that, I gave him the little sketch that Josh had drawn and explained it with him, and he was just gonna go down through there. Tom did it, I think. Tom Markowski was the one.
Matt was the operator.
Oh, Matt was down there doing it, but I talked to Tom about it, and he understood exactly what we wanted to accomplish there, so.
Yeah, happy to add plants in the spring.
Yeah.
So if we sell it, I'm not sure how that's gonna work.
If it turns into private property, or you still,
That's fine, we just need, operations and maintenance, just a one-page document signed that says that people won't purposely hurt the vegetation.
okay, so that's something that we're gonna need anyways when we sell the property, because we're gonna wanna always have access to get in there and make any kind of adjustments to that ditch if necessary.
And any kind of adjustment to a ditch or something to do with flooding is fine, and the agreement's only for 10 years, so there's a lot of flexibility in that agreement.
Okay, thank you. Frank?
You may want to retain an access easement that stays on the deed.
That's what, yes,
Period. Yeah.
so we can maintain it, right. Okay, so that's the big story of the wastewater treatment, and then unfortunately, with all that flow, it tripped our E. coli. Our E. coli was high, so we failed that test. So she reached out to Shay, I believe is our state agent, and explained the situation, asked us what we can do about it and stuff. And I mean, it's not like we're not paying attention, but we were basically just about at max flow of our capacity at our station, but it was all water, so it was just going through so fast that the UV couldn't keep up with the. She instantly, you know, the minute she got the results from the test, we'll have to test in a couple of weeks again or something, so. And that's about all I know from Jill for this week.
Has anybody followed up with her about what the town would like to do for the,
That grant?
PRSOQ or PR, you know, what we did for the feasibility, the funding for the feasibility.
Right, with Jenny Oster.
Jenny Oster.
I haven't yet, and I had it on my mind that I was gonna try and get to it, but
Okay.
it just didn't work this week.
I'm just not sure at this point if it falls. The last handful of memos, it's been, oh, she's going to get it to us and she's gonna get it to us, and then at the last memo was, what does the town wanna do? But I think we just still haven't seen it, so I just didn't know.
But she said she thought it would be time if we were good to do a project, we'd have to get it warranted to put on the list, but I can't see a recovery that the cost of the project won't bring down the price enough to make it worth it, the user fee
Right.
enough to make it worth it, in my opinion, unless, but it would just be a better way to manage our sludge, but I think that the amount of money we spend to do it wouldn't pay off.
Yeah.
You know, it wouldn't have a reasonable payoff to put that extra burden on the taxpayers at this point to pay for that project.
I just know, yeah, I just didn't want us to be dropping the ball on that if there's something we should have been doing, but it seems like
It's kind of
we're in the right place.
between Jill and Jenny kind of are
Okay.
running that one, and we're just waiting for the, but I will try and reach out to her and talk to her about that and see if there's any way that we see, you know, within 5 years it'll reduce have paid for this project and it'll reduce the user fee or something like that, but
right.
you know, if it's just gonna be kind of one of those balancing things, can't see putting any more burden.
What's this project that they're thinking of doing? Is it an upgrade?
It would be an upgrade to for sludge. It would be converting for sludge storage.
Okay.
There was, last year, we had gone through this program and it was brought to the town's attention that this additional sludge storage option could be something that could benefit the town because currently the wastewater treatment facility isn't necessarily providing the sludge storage that we need. And that's contributing towards the lack of enhanced performance, if I'm saying it correctly. So last year, we went through and we put together these, it was this whole document and we seeked all of these different engineering firms essentially that would help to give us quotes to come up with these programs, and then through that there could have been funding, but it was just a pretty involved process to seek these different quotes, and then the board had to grade them, and then we had to go through this. It was a pretty big process that we went through, and then it sort of just fell off, and so it's been this ongoing item that continues to pop up on memos and whatnot, but I just wasn't sure. It seemed, and then we've come to find out that that might not be the thing that's going to really help the wastewater treatment facility to excel. So it might not be quite worth it. But it was one of those things that we kind of stopped hearing as much about, and so I just wasn't sure.
It would be, what it would do is, it would end up basically, what am I trying to say? Thicken the sludge before we shipped it, so the sludge that we shipped would be thicker instead of...
There'd be less volume.
Right.
But
Yes.
But I don't think, when Rich and I talked to her a couple of times about it, it
no,
really...
there's better options as far as running that plant.
And also, I don't think that even if we were to do that, that the payoff would be there. It'd be a pretty
would
good
make
chunk
it
of change to do it.
It would have made sense if we could have used the existing facility as storage, but we hired an engineer to look through the prints, and he determined that the concrete structure was not strong enough, so we couldn't use that existing structure as a holding tank. That would have been worth the risk of trying to see if, hey, let's use that as storage, but the cement just isn't, there's not enough rebar and reinforcement in the walls to hold it, so.
It wasn't designed for that volume of sludge, so that would require a whole new pit.
Right.
So that puts it up to like $200,000-$300,000 project or something
Minimum.
like that, you know? And even mostly funded is still a lot of money to put on 120 users. So. Oh, and I'm just, Frank?
Was the engineer approached on any ability to utilize the store foundation that's sitting there, that's gonna sit there with no purpose other than, because there was a concept of that?
We didn't even go down that route yet. It was still just looking at,
So that may be a possibility still.
probably not.
By the time you retrofitted,
Can't be
I don't think
retrofitted?
so.
If the
You'd start
structure,
over again.
right, the structure of the sewer plant would be a lot heavier than the structure of just that store anyways, because it was designed as tanks, and it didn't have enough for the density of the sludge as opposed to just the wastewater.
But if you use the footprint of that and then built inside of that, the structure that you need. you
An
might be able to utilize-
engineer would tell you to dig all of it out and start over again.
Start from scratch.
They'd never sign off on
Right,
any
because
part of that.
there's no way that they know what that was made of.
Yeah.
So-
It may seem like a good idea and it might seem like it makes sense, but an engineer would never sign his name to that. So it just wouldn't happen.
One thing that I'm thinking about right now is the roads falling in, and Rich has been talking with Riley about that. Right down by the town garage, it seems like since they've pumped the water out of that quarry, that the road is gradually sliding in like it has in the past when they pumped the quarry out. So
Is that, which one?
Headed
Just-
towards West Pawlet.
As you're headed toward West Pawlet, just before you get to the town garage, where you turn that corner, the road is
Okay.
it's settled about a foot or so. But through the years, it's probably settled 15 or 20 feet since they did the project in the 70s. So unfortunately, when they did that project, they didn't do any kind of compaction, and they pushed in enough of that quarry just to do what they needed to do to shore up the road. They didn't give anything extra. So Rich has talked with Riley, Williams, and he's gonna start carrying his rubbish over and putting it on there down at the base to start to build up to give a wider stance to that whole road project, so. They push, if you,
Yeah, it's settling,
quite a lot.
yeah.
In the 70s, that road was a little narrow, skinny road, and it was falling in. So where the dump building is now, you can see that it's kind of, I don't know, like 75 or 100 feet high of rubbish behind the dump building. Well, that went all the way to the road, and there was just a little teeny road trapped in between two high piles. And they pushed all that in to that quarry hole to redo the road. So there's, I don't know, probably 200 feet of quarry fill that doesn't really compact well. So as the water went away and the blasting, everything kind of settled, and it just kind of all, so through the years, especially for the first several years, you'd end up with a drop about that far. By the course of the summer, the road would go down, they'd have to put some dirt in and pave it. And
So the
Pull
good
the
thing
trigger
is, it's on rock, slate rubbish, so it's not like there's a pocket of clay that's gonna give out all at once like on Buttons Falls Road. So it's all, slate rubbish, so it's settling all together. Yeah.
This has been fun, but I think we're getting a little off track.
But the point, I guess the point of the matter is that
This could be
we
a
are
big
aware,
issue.
we are aware of it, and we're working on
Okay.
solutions if we hear.
If we hear of
If
anything.
people are asking about why the road's settling there, we're aware of it and we're working toward a solution, but it's not gonna be a instant fix.
Okay. Very good.
So I think we're done with everything wastewater. Rose?
Just a question about that. Is there any concern that a large storm, like we've been having, could accelerate the sinking process there?
I wouldn't think so.
The only thing that I can say is I've never seen it. And I watched it ever since they pushed the road in, and it would just gradually settle from time, and it seemed to be more so when the quarry was pumped out, when the quarry was active, is when it seemed to settle more. But rain events have never seemed to make any difference. There's no water that goes down in that area or anything like that. So, Frank?
Riley putting the trash in there will put the mass in, which over
Right.
time, when he dumps enough of it in,
Right, he'll get it built up to the side and it'll alleviate the issue.
won't have any problems with it in the future, probably.
He's gonna step it up, he's gonna start at the base, compact it, and step it up through to hold it.
Shall we?
Michelle?
Okay,
Older unfinished business. So,
monument.
Monica?
About the monument, you received the signatures, I sent you the update, 126 signatures supporting a monument on the green. And it was just amazing going from house to house to learn everybody's opinion and thoughts on this. And what I've learned from the residents who signed the petition was there is a value in having an informative work of art commemorating our history in a visible and accessible location on the town green. Something tangible to inspire, celebrate, and be proud of for generations. It's cool. Bring the community together by knowing its special history and inspiring the younger members of the community to remain here with a sense of pride at place. The school, library, and merchants will benefit with a focus on the larger story of Pawlet. And traditionally in Vermont, a statue is placed on the green, the focal point of the town. There is precedent here. There was a cannon on the green, and from Dorothy often sends scrapbook. She mentions that the jail cell and the cannon was melted down in World War II for military purposes. It was donated by the town. Also from Dorothy often sends a book. Pawlet played an historic part in the defense of our country. This ends one chapter in the building of Pawlet. Men fought for an idea that would unite today enjoy the rich heritage of our town, Pawlet. And I have to, you did get the dimensions that I sent to you. The actual monument is 2 feet by 3 feet in length by 4 feet high. It takes up about 6 square feet of the green, which is less than the table that's sitting out there. It is 7.5 feet high. And you did get the connection to the artist, Judge Hartman, who is a sculptor in Vermont, working in bronze. The base is made up at Castleton. It would be a made-in-Vermont product. And I have to say, the sculptor, when I spoke to him about other locations possible, when I was working with the historical, he said, if you're investing this kind of money for a work of art, why would you hide it? And he has an excellent point on that. A work of art is to be seen. And that's all I have to say. So I would like more support from the board for the monument on the green. Yes, and I need it to go for funding also.
Anybody have any questions for Monica? Go ahead, Harley.
Mr. Chairman, clarification. The dimensions 2 by 3 by 4 feet, is that the overall monument or is that the base? And then how high is the monument? I didn't quite follow.
Okay, may I answer?
Yes.
Okay, so 2 feet wide, approximate 2 feet wide, this is what the sculptor needs for his piece. 3 feet long, 4 feet high is about this high, 7.5 feet high, which is about the top of the stand. The sculpture itself is just a 3/4 size figure, which is 3.5 feet high.
Thank you.
And it would be made in bronze with no maintenance. Bronze goes for hundreds of years. The base is in granite. The plaque is in bronze.
Would the base require support and under it?
Yes, and RMG Stone up in Castleton will install it. A statue would be shipped from the sculptor's studio to RMG. They will place it on the stone and secure it, and then dig the base and put the statue.
Okay. In your proposal page documents that you sent us, I didn't see anywhere where there were any estimated dollar costs.
Yes, I didn't put the exact cost because I'm waiting for RMG Stone and also for the sculptor. But we figure initially it'll be $25,000 to $30,000
For the complete project?
for the complete project. And this includes shipping and installing and so forth. And all of that will be privately funded and through grants. Now, I didn't put the name of the grants on your sheet, but there's a timetable.
Would the town be responsible for writing the grants or applying for the grants or?
Well, I don't know, that could be discussed in the town.
I'm asking you, are these type of grants that the town would have to apply for and not you as a group, a committee or something?
You need a 501c3 or a municipality.
Or the municipality. So the municipality would have to apply for these grants.
Oh, they could, I mean, it would make it easier.
Okay.
I've spoken to people who are offering these grants. I can tell you one is from the DAR. They do a matching grant up to $10,000. And so that would have to be fundraised and then.
So I'd like to know, you know, what the grants were, so you knew how much you would have, how much you could expect from the grant, and then how much the rest of the funding would have to be raised.
Okay, so there's the 10,000 matching grant. So if I raise 10,000 in donation, they will match it up to 10,000. That's 20,000. Then there's another grant that can give up to another 10,000, which would be 30,000. And another grant after that, they offer up to $10,000 also. I don't know whether I'll get that total 10,000 there on that third grant. It's one of the, in the state of Vermont grant.
Are they all match grants or just the first
No,
one?
just the one. One of the grants, the people, the corporation that offers grants comes from Grafton, and a corporation there, and they know Judd Hartman very well.
Judy?
I just have a question. Usually with grants, you have to pay up front and wait for the grants to come. So if that's the case, Monica, how would you handle the upfront payments?
Well, each grant is different. I haven't read in there that you have to pay up front.
I guess I was just thinking from when
Most of the grants that we get, we have to support put front the money for all the project until the project is complete, and then we get the grant money after the project is complete. That's the way all the grants work that we've worked through all the years on all the different projects.
Well, some of these grants will give you money at each stage. You have a timetable, so they'll give you money at one stage, and then further down the road, when that's completed, you know, and it rolls like that.
Okay, so we would probably certainly need to know more information about the specifics of the available grants and whether or not they would pay up front for the project, or if somebody had to put up working capital to complete the project, and then the grant would pay at the end of the project, like stuff that we work with.
I can send you those grants.
Okay.
And the applications. I'll have to scan them and send them to you. But in order to move this project along, the longer this is delayed, you know, this is a 4 to 5 year project because of grant money, and the sculpture needs at least 1.5 years. And that is the key here. The sculpture needs that timing. So this is over a 4 to 5 year period. And I'm sure that we can raise donations. And between that and the grant, we can get money to do this.
All right.
If there's a problem with the lag time between the commitment of the grant and their actually making the payment, we can cover the lag time in between.
Okay, but we certainly need to see all the specifics of all the grants that you feel you would require to do this project.
Well, I wish I would have known that. I could have given you the meeting before that.
Well, and I understand that you're working against a timeline, but this is a project that the whole town input it needs to be on, and we need to make sure that should we decide to support a project like that, we have to make sure that everything is clearly spelled out before we just start giving a go-ahead without having all the information in front of us. So if you can supply that information for us, that will continue the process.
So you'll need all the grant
you know, we'd like a very good overview of what grants you intend on applying for and the matching funds, you know, so that they could all be reviewed and.
Okay, that's fine.
And did you have a specific location? I saw you had a picture, but did you have a specific location where you felt that you wanted to place that?
I would, it would be on the green, and I would have the sculptor come to the town, and he really would know best where to place that sculpture on the green for the best viewing and best circulation and so forth. But it would be toward the front where you have the ramp, or in the back, toward the library. And for me, I've seen a lot of these monuments on the green toward the library, so it gives you perspective. As you come into town, it has a nice perspective. But like I said, the footprint is not a large footprint.
Does anybody else have on the board? Oh, Kristen?
Well, I just have a question. Is the Historical Society a 501c3, or is there any other organization in town that might encompass this initiative that would not be the municipality? Because I think my question being that because the town, you know, is wanting this information about the grants based on the fact that the town would probably be the one with their name on the grant application. So I'm curious about whether, you know, if this is a historical society initiative or if there's more information about that, or.
Is the Historical Society a 501c3 or not?
Yes, we are. We don't support the project because we already have a monument to the Pawlet encampment of 1777 at the North Pawlet School, and plan to better educate folks about the event and let folks know that that's where it is. So we don't support it.
Yes, that's
the cannon that Monica referred to was on the original green, which was in front of McChesney Real Estate. There wasn't a green down here when the cannon was located up there. There used to be a bandstand there. That's where the Revolutionary War monument is to just Revolutionary War veterans in general, is up in front of McChesney Real Estate. The one at the North Pawlet School is specifically for the Pawlet encampment of 1777.
Monica?
May I respond to that? I'd like to respond. First of all, I was just up at the old schoolhouse, the North Schoolhouse, this morning, early this morning, to meet with the young lady. And there's no parking there. There's no, so one of the young ladies parked in the driveway of a private home, the one next to it. So I went by the schoolhouse, and then I had to turn around down by Hewlett's, come back up, and squeeze in somebody else's driveway. Now, there's no access. It's a dangerous curve. I couldn't even pull over to the side because people are going 40, 50 miles an hour around that curve, and there would be an accident. So how can you park in a private driveway? If they have an emergency, what happens? There's nothing there. And that is the problem. I love the monument over there. But there's no access, and nobody knows. This is what I hear from 126 people, that they don't know that that monument exists because you can't access it, and you're speeding by. And that is the whole point for 2 years. I've been in communication with the Historic Society, and Barry Meinhardt, who was the president at the time, totally supported it, and also Steve Williams. And, you know, working with the Historic Society, very nice, but they suggested putting it at the school. School, you can't put it there because of security reasons. Up by the cemetery, it's hidden again. So you're going to go through this whole process. I will be the only one who come to the town and say, my gosh, this significant history happened in this town. Why not have something? So if this goes away, somebody else will just take this cost up.
Okay.
And I've had such wonderful, wonderful response from people in town, all of these people. It was just incredible. So I told them, go to the old schoolhouse, read the plaque. And so I'm sure there are more people there just to know this history.
Okay. Sir, you had a question?
Yes, my name is Andy McSherran. I was in the military for 8 years in the Army, and I've camped in a lot of places. I don't see lots of memorials for where I camped. Where did they camp? There was an encampment. It was a staging area before the Battle of Saratoga. Or were they encamped before then or after? Is there monuments there for them, that staging area? I don't know. Also in this day and times, they literally just took a statue of one of our founding fathers in New York City, Thomas Jefferson, down. Is it something we want to, is now the time we want to do a monument towards a militarized group? That's just my point. Trust me, I'm a big proponent in history. I preserve history every day. I do living history for, Civil War. Why don't we have a monument for Marcellus Jones, who shot the first shot at Gettysburg? I just don't think right now it's the time to be. I think that's just my personal view.
Thank you. Martha?
I just would like to check in with all of you if you had received 2 letters from our president of the Pawlet Historical Society, a letter from Abby and Judy and me and Rhonda Schlegman about how the process that was used in getting the signatures, and also the need that if you are giving this your full consideration, rather than turning it down at this point, if you're giving it further consideration, the request for an architectural drawing to scale, I think would be very important, and I would like to request, if you're going in that direction, that you send the drawing to May Campbell at the Preservation Trust of Vermont. And she might be able to give us guidelines on, this building itself is on the National Register. And she could give us guidelines about what you can do in the environment in front of the building that's on the National Register. And I think that would include some aesthetic criteria as well. So that's my request, if that's the direction you're going in. In general terms, I would like to say that these kinds of monuments were very popular in the early 19th century. Do we still feel that that's the way to commemorate an important historical event? What, if you can visualize it, what are we glorifying by a monument on the green with a militiaman standing, I think, although it hasn't been clear yet, holding a rifle, I think, although that's not clear. That's why I'm suggesting you get an architectural drawing to be very specific. What we see on the news every day, people trying to settle individual relationship differences by pulling out a gun. And unfortunately, it's even happening with teenagers now, not just adults settling their disagreements with a gun. So that's, from my own personal concerns, what would we be glorifying by that kind of monument?
Thank you.
Rhonda, just so you know, Rhonda also has her hand raised electronically, so.
Hi, Jessica.
I haven't spoken yet, and I admit that personally, I'm somewhat ambivalent about the idea of a statue. I don't really have a big, strong opinion one way or the other, but I do have that same personal opinion about statues with guns. I mean, if the whole town wanted a statue with a gun, I would vote for it, because that would be what the town wanted. But something I was thinking about, however, in reading that article that you sent us, Monica, about Hoyt and Kingsley, who wrote it, and they were talking about what actually happened at this encampment, right? And like you said, they were encamped here, they didn't fight. And in the article it mentioned that 1 cook pot was given out per 6 people, and that one of those soldiers had to carry the cook pot. And it just popped into my head, if we were to make a statue of someone with a cook pot, I mean, of a soldier, right? A a ranger, like carrying, with his stuff, but carrying the cook pot, how that would really commemorate what happened here, as the encampment. And I don't know if this is a wild idea or not, but it just popped into my head. And then when you mentioned that about guns, I thought, what if it was a cook pot statue? And I looked at what the artist has done. This artist mostly does Native Americans, right? It's a really great artist, by the way. Everyone should look at his work. But he does very many dynamic things with people in different poses, right? And I was thinking, if we asked him to do a cook pot, he would probably do something really interesting looking. Sorry, that was just my thought.
Rhonda?
Rhonda, you're up.
Hi, thank you. So I understood from the presentation at the last select board meeting that the interest motivating this proposed monument is really to educate our community and visitors about Pawlet's history, and I think this is fantastic. I'm a member of the Historical Society Board, and I love learning about our local history too. But for me, if that's your starting point, the next logical question would be, if one really wants to educate people about Pawlet's history, what is the most effective way to do this? So how do people learn about history? And I think we need to answer that question, or at least ask it, and we've skipped over it to this conclusion. And I think the answer to that question may or may not lead to a monument. And I've been chatting with educators and doing a little bit of looking at related museum science literature, which suggests that erecting monuments are not, in fact, the most effective way to teach people about history. So I think jumping to a monument as the solution to educating people about Pawlet is probably premature. I think it's an important question to ask, and I think we always need to be actively exploring and learning about ways how to engage people, how to share our community and our past with people who visit our community, and do it in a more nuanced and thoughtful way. Because as Jessica shared, it was really interesting, and I've wondered, so where did the food come from to fill those cook pots? What was that like for the farmers who had soldiers camped on their land? What was that entire experience like? I think there's so many really, really interesting questions to explore that two-dimensional or three-dimensional statue would really get us to. Thank you.
Thank you. Monica, quickly, please.
Oh, yes, just to make clear, the statue would be of a Herrick Ranger, and we have generations of Herricks in our town. And we have Herrick Brook Road, and we have Herrick River, Herrick Brook. So this is where this comes from too. it's the Rangers, the Herrick Rangers were created here. The base for Colonel Lincoln, Benjamin Lincoln, the base was here in Pawlet. There's such rich history here. You have monuments in DC. They are inspiring, they're dynamic. And having something in Pawlet that's dynamic and art, like you said, this sculpture is very, very good. And it would be really something to be proud of, and the town would be excited about it. But it would be a Herrick Ranger, and I also said we do have the scale and a Photoshop rendering of what the sculpture would look like. It's, you have that, correct? That scale. That sculpture on top of the granite stone is a Minuteman. It's about the same period, but he would be standing in a dynamic position. So, to answer those questions.
Stop. I don't know if she was done. Yeah, I kind of see the merit of both sides of the points being brought up, and I think, remember, like a few years back, I discovered and read about this, the Pawlet expedition. I was pretty fascinated. I mean, it's just hard to picture a couple thousand people camped out, all these years ago. And I like the idea of bringing up Pawlet's history, but as I say, maybe it's a compromise. I mean, maybe it's a really nice plaque put in a more prominent central location. Maybe the front of the library, or maybe it's on the green, but as opposed to a statue that could be controversial. Some kind of a nice bronze plaque that tells the history, that doesn't have to be a soldier. I don't know. It just seems like a compromise. Just a thought.
The whole point, Scott, is that these men fought and died for the idea of freedom here. They didn't do it any other way. They didn't cook their way out of it, and they didn't, just camp and come to the conclusion that they did. There's nothing.
We're going to have to wrap this up for this
But
meeting.
I love Frankfurt.
Judy had one question.
Oh, I do. I copied out of Dorothy Offenson's book, the dedication of the marker at North Pawlet. And I just want to say, I can speak for myself. I can't speak for the rest of the Historical Society, but we're really proud of that marker that is over there. Granted, it may not be in the best location, but if you look at it, if you look at this this dedication, it tells us that the plaque was attached to an appropriate shaped glacial rock from the south side of Indian Hill on the Offenson farm. Nate Smith transported it from the site of its origin, and it was placed on a cement base. And I just think to say that this is going to be something that everyone is really proud of. I mean, I feel that we have something really good over at North Pawlet School.
I have a question, and maybe you can answer this. Why is there no parking over there? Can you put some parking in?
So, one of the things that we have been exploring is how do we make what we have in the collection more accessible. And that is one thing we need to have somebody come in and look at and give us an estimate. And I think just from our own working on the collection that we need to do that. And it's not been even brought up before. So I think that's a project that we'll take on here in the next year or so.
we don't really know what size our lot is or anything, so
Yeah.
we need to get in there.
We don't know where the
someday.
boundary lines are.
Right, so Marty, that's it for this discussion.
Okay, I just want to kind of revisit the idea of the purpose of a monument versus programs or educational bulletin boards or kiosks. A monument is the most permanent marker that you can have. You can have educational programs and they will last only as long as the people are interested in putting them out there. Traditionally, monuments have gone on a town green. Now, the issue of whether other encampments had markers, I can tell you anecdotally. I had an uncle who served in Europe in World War II with the 9th Air Force, and I looked up the airfield in Normandy where he was stationed. It's now a cow pasture again, which is what it was when he got there. And sure enough, there's a monument right along the side of the road with a plaque with the names of every man in his squadron that was killed there. If you go all through Europe, you're going to see monuments to American soldiers. Some of them will be life-size, but they're permanent. The next most permanent thing is a book. And probably the least permanent is to put on a program for a year or two to try to educate people and have outreach. As far as guns are concerned, let's get real. This isn't Chicago. It's not San Francisco. Most of this town is filled with hunters. Guns are just a part of life up here. And there's no gun crime in this town, and you're not sending any bad messages by having a militiaman with a gun. It's really disingenuous to create a statue of a man with a cooking pot when that's not what won the Battle of Saratoga. It simply isn't. They didn't beat the British over the head with iron pots.
Okay,
I had it.
thank you, Marty. We'll continue this.
Can I just ask one question?
And then we really gotta move
Yeah,
on.
we
We're
gotta-
15 minutes over on this topic, so we gotta carry on here.
Real quick,
Go ahead.
could I just ask the board, maybe I'm overstepping my bounds, but I'd like to hear from you guys as to how you're feeling.
As we gather our information, we'll end up with a decision but right now, it's still a lot of information that I'll take in and to understand everybody's side and perspective and sort it all out. And it's just to get it at one meeting and try and compile it all is too much for me, that's for sure. So that's why we'll discuss it again in a couple of weeks. Thank you all. What's next? Anything else on old or unfinished business? John?
Meeting next week.
Yeah. So there's the meeting next week.
Oh, there's a meeting next week, but that's strictly for the...
The scoping study?
No, it's for the public to give input. The meeting is intended to give all local residents and interested parties the opportunity to provide input on potential improvements and impacts of this project, including the study of the 133, Route 30, and School Street intersection. The purpose of this meeting is not to present solutions, but to better define and understand the needs. Comments and concerns raised from this meeting will be considered in developing the purpose and need. Whoop, that didn't print.
Well, we get the idea.
Get the idea. Well, the consultant that we've hired, along with the Rutland Regional Planning, will be there and make a presentation
At 7 o'clock?
at 7 o'clock here
On December 7th.
And that's what, the scoping study for the
for the
intersection walkways and
from
stuff like
Sheldon
that?
Store to the Barn Restaurant up from the firehouse down to the library.
Down to the library.
Right here
Yep,
Yes.
with the Zoom
Yeah.
attendance.
This meeting will be here
yep.
in this
Tuesday.
room. Okay.
Tuesday, a week from today.
Be
7
there or be
p.m.
square.
Be there or don't, but it's gonna be on Zoom or here.
I don't know, ways to conflict, I have a conflict, but as a person who shops and uses, like, are there ways to comment for people that aren't in Pawlet, or is it just for Pawlet residents?
I think it's for anyone who's interested.
I would certainly welcome you to come.
I can't make the meeting, so I was wondering if there's a way to provide any input as somebody who, like, you know, just uses this area and.
Well, you're certainly very familiar with this whole area and everything, and you are very educated in a very important factor about any changes we do will affect what ends up in the stream, so I would certainly think it would be great if it...
We should ask the person who's hired to do the study if there's another way for the public to make comment besides being at the meeting. 'Cause there's gotta be a way to send email comments or something.
I can contact her.
That would be great.
We'll let you know.
Thank you so much.
And the meeting will probably be videotaped and available.
I don't upload anything else anymore, so if there's anything, if.
We don't know. We
Yeah.
haven't invited
Okay,
whether they attend or not.
thank you.
And then the only other item on new business, I don't know, so Lindsay Barnes, the librarian, had emailed right after the last meeting about that story walk, which I had emailed you all about, and I think maybe 2 people, no, I think you replied. Anyway, I think she said it was going to be too late if the board didn't get a chance to formally decide. I had said if anybody wanted to reply to me individually, and then I could just take that, if there was just a general consensus, and let her know, but it was right before the holidays, and I think I only heard back from 2, so there wasn't a consensus. So the concept basically is that the library was wanting to put a holiday story on little storyboards just for one night and have sort of an event for people to come around and walk around the lit green and read this holiday story. So she did say that she thought it might be too late to pull it together if the decision wasn't made until today, but I could, depending on how you all feel about it, let her know your thoughts, and in the event that she did want to try to figure out a way to move forward. So.
I don't see anything wrong with that. It seems like a fine idea.
I thought it seemed like a nice thing to do too.
It was just one evening, I think, for like 3 hours, and the library would advertise this as like a holiday familial event. So.
Sounds like you can tell her yes, I mean, nobody's opposed, so.
Okay.
Consensus of the board is fine with it.
Okay.
I have one new thing from, Sue Laporte said we have to get the 5-year elevator test, and just wanted to know if we are contracted with, she wrote here, she wants to know if she should get it from Schindler or Barrier Free. Do we have a contract with?
She didn't talk to me about it.
Well, she emailed. Well, so I'm finding out now.
I think it's through Barrier Free.
Are we contracted with Barrier Free?
Right.
All right. No, I'm the go-to person now, I guess.
The Schindler deal was a complicated way to get out of the contract, right, John?
We didn't get rid of it.
We didn't, but
Still with Schindler.
it's,
And I think it's a racket anyway. We had to, when the power went off,
yeah,
not this last time, but a couple weeks ago, it set the elevator to not operating. So we had to make a call, and it ended up being a $600 service call.
that's a lot cheaper than Schindler never come here for under $1,000.
$1,200, because they would have had to come from
Boston.
Northampton or Springfield, Mass. So.
Cheap at half the price, huh?
So the consensus is we should go with Barrier Free. I'll tell her that.
Yes, they're very
Okay.
local. They're in Queensboro.
Yep. All right, good. That's all I needed.
And then I had one other, someone contacted me about concerns with a quarry that's over off of ooh, this would be helpful if I remember the road. Off of, when you turn on to the Briar Hill area, like right on the border of New York and Vermont, that road.
The Warren Switch Road.
The Warren Switch Road, thank you. The concerns about quarry activity there, and they wanted to know before coming to the board if it was worth coming to the board or if they should just go directly to Act 250. And I let them know that I would inquire. Because this individual said that they would have to take a night off of work to come to a meeting, and I just said before they do that.
They're having problems with the people that are operating the quarry?
The quarry allegedly is operating for about 16 hours a day, and there's been no notifications of blasting, and it's destructive and, or, you know, disruptive, I guess I should say.
That's definitely all Act 250
Okay.
and mine safety and all that.
That's what I had, that's what I had said, but I also said that I would bring it to you and get your feedback on that before they decided to take a night off of work to come, so. If, just for my own clarification, what would be the item that, is there any item that they would, no, Bob, okay. Go to Act 250 for that.
If it was a local zoning concern, they would go to Jonas.
Okay, thank you. That's what I said, but you know, sometimes it's nice to just have a little extra oomph to feel like I did the right thing. So thank you.
Any other new business anybody's got?
I have some.
Yeah.
Over the last couple of weeks, I was contacted several times by mostly residents of Briar Hill about animals, specifically goats and pigs running at large. And so I traveled up and down Briar Hill several times, not seeing anything, not in time, but I saw pictures and damage that was done. And then the other day, Friday after Thanksgiving, I got a call that we're up on Briar Hill, and I went up and I was looking for a herd of goats, but I actually found a group of pigs, and so I rounded up the pigs and ended up taking them, putting them in my barn, and I contacted to make sure I went through the process correctly, because I had already consulted the VLCT to make sure that I was handling the process correctly as a large animal pound keeper. I contacted the state police, and I worked with Trooper Schutt, and I also received a call from Jenny Presser, who's the general counsel and director of municipal assistance, and she is going through the working with me and going through the process. But basically what we've done is I contacted the wife of the owner of the pigs, and originally I contacted her a couple of, I don't remember the date, but a week and a half ago, when the animals were loose, and told her they couldn't run loose. You couldn't free range animals or let them run at large. And she did contact me an hour later, said that she had them back on their property and contained, and so I thanked her. The second time around was the time that I found the pigs right on the roadside eating vegetation and in danger of getting run over or having someone avoid hitting them and go off the road. So I impounded them, and I contacted her, and she came and got them yesterday evening, and or was it the night before? Anyway, night before, I guess. And so that's basically the second time, and I reiterated that, you know, that the town, following the state law, there can be all kinds of different fines and violations and whatnot that follow along. So I'm working together with Dave Ricard is up to speed and everything, and so hopefully they just keep them on their own property and keep them under control, and the problem will hopefully go away.
Nice work.
Excellent. See, you get all good stuff for being that animal keeper too.
Yeah.
Yep. It happens. Right, keep me in the loop if anything else goes.
Yep.
Anybody else got anything?
Would someone mind closing the door, please? Thank you.
That's it for new business.
That's it.
Public comment. Does anyone have public comment? Frank?
Quickly, on the Corian issue, we don't have any influence over it, but Cabricki Construction had a big quarry over in the Falls area, and they had neighborhood complaints, but they're a big operation. They just bought everybody out and moved their employees in and rented the houses they bought out all around to their staff, and the staff were happy, not complaining about anything. But that's common practice with some of the Korean operations, is that they just buy out everything and build a perimeter, and the problems all go away for whatever. That's it.
Thank you. Anybody else have any public comment? Thank you all for coming. Have a good evening.
Well, I move we
Need a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, I move we
You moved to adjourn a second?
I'll second.
All right, we got it. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, opposed, carried.